This tutorial, I will be covering how to create grayscale sketches for concept art. And they're specifically used for doing environments and backgrounds. For those of you who may be listening to this on YouTube, uh, this is for my concept art course at Kennesaw State University. And for their project, we're doing an environment that is made up of ruins and rubble. And those could be ancient ruins or they could be modern ruins, uh, anyway, or alien ruins. Anyway, I have a specific format and it's extreme widescreen. So let's get started. And we're using Photoshop here. So I'm going to go and file a new. And our width is going to be 21 inches by 9 inches for our project. Okay. And so it's important that when you do sketches for your project, you do them the same size. So we're going to start off with this, and then we're going to make frames inside. Our resolution set at 300, RGB color, and we could use grayscale, but it's like later if we're using the same file and we start to color things. It makes it easier because I've done it in the past where I just forget to change it to RGB and when I start coloring, I get frustrated. So anyway, we can just leave that grayscale. Background contents, we're going to make transparent. And so when I create this, you'll see that it looks like I have a white background, but really, if you look at our layers palette, it's a floating layer. And I've covered this in other tutorials, but just in case you didn't catch those, what I have done here is up on our settings, under transparency and gamut, I've taken my grid size and turned it to none because the grid really, I find it too distracting. Okay. And I like working this way because if I'm working off a white background, sometimes I accidentally start drawing on that background. And then when I try to move the things I've drawn, I have to cut them out of the white background. So anyway, I like to work this way. So let's get started. We're going to hit the D key for the default fill and stroke, and that'll bring the foreground color black to and we'll do Alt or Option key, whichever you are working on, and we'll hit the Delete key or the Backspace key if you're on a PC, and then we're going to make a new layer, and we're going to hit X, and that will bring white to the front there, and we'll do Alt Delete again, and then what I'm going to do is do Control T or Command T. And then I'm going to click inside here. I'm going to type in 25. Okay? And that brings that down to being a really smaller rectangle, but it's in proportion to the final project. Okay? So, like I said, it is essential to when you work on these things, I'm going to duplicate this layer, that whenever you're given dimension sizes, you need to work within those same proportions when you're doing your sketches. And this is one way to make sure that happens, okay? And so let's see here. What I'm doing, by the way, is when I'm dragging this over, I'm holding down my Shift key. And I'm just kind of waiting to see if it gives me a signal of how far apart these are. This is good enough. I think I saw something there. But anyway, we've got a lot of space in between, which is fine. I'm so picky sometimes. Okay, I'm going to take all these layers, do Command E or Control E, and so that makes them all into one layer. I will duplicate that, and then we'll drag these down, hold down the Shift key. Okay, we'll duplicate that and do the same thing. And then we take all three layers, select them all, Command E. Now we've got this, and now if we're going to make frames, we could draw inside this, or what I prefer to do is we're going to select them by clicking on the icon and holding down the Command key or Control key there. So it selects them, and then we'll go down to the black layer here, the layer 1, and we'll hit Delete, and voila, we've got frames, and therefore we would make layers up underneath this. So we'll delete these, and now we can paint here, okay? And what we're going to be doing is working in grayscale, and generally, it's good to start off with a hard edge brush. And we'll use just a round brush right now. And let me see for shape dynamics. We'll look at the tips. We'll take off smoothing here. Okay. I'm just checking this out here. Must be something. Yeah, there we go. That's why it's doing that. Because I have that set like that. All right. Now, as far as color, I change my color. I like to use my color palette. And what I like to do is when I'm first setting up my values is I'll use a grayscale slider like this. So we just see grayscale. And therefore we could type in, let's say 80. And that will be our dark gray. And so on this layer, we will paint dark gray shapes. And I'm just going to quickly draw in some kind of foreground color because this is a foreground color. And we can make our brush a little larger here so it goes faster. But let's say we got a hillside slanting down like this. Maybe these look like slabs of concrete. I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I'm just sort of drawing. A lot of times I'll just, especially for landscapes and environments, I just start drawing and I let my imagination take over. I just, I'll let my hands move around. Then I'll cut into stuff. I have a rectangle brush, which I'm going to show you how to make in a moment, which is very easy to do. But, it's kind of cool because, if you're trying to draw things that look like they're architectural, I'm just trying to draw something that maybe this was a platform. It's in the foreground, okay? Now we're going to do another layer, and we can add more things to that layer in a moment. And we're going to pick, let's say we'll bring this down to 50%. So we're going to use dark gray, middle gray, and light gray, and then white will be our background. And I'm trying to get that to 50. If we want to, we can just type in 50. That makes it much easier. Okay? And then, we were going to draw here, some other kind of shape here. And actually, I was thinking of trying to draw kind of a castle for this, perhaps, in the background. And that rectangle brush would really come in handy for that because I was using that in another tutorial that I did not like because I excluded something. And I'm just going to draw a little bit here for the moment. And then let's erase out. Go back in. I'm just going to work here for just a second and get something. Let's scale this down a little bit. Bring this in the background a little bit further. Maybe make it tiny. This is way in the distance, let's say. Okay. Because I've been doing a lot of modern ruins in my sketches, which I'll show you in just a moment. So anyway, let me talk about making brushes. And one thing we're going to do is we're going to just go and make a rectangular brush. And in order to do that, we just get our marquee tool. And we need to fill this with black. Because if you fill it with a gray or a color, and you start and you make this into a brush, you start painting with it, that brush is actually transparent. You can't get that brush to be 100% opaque, okay? And now you may want brushes that are like that. So it's good to know that. So anyway, let's go to Edit, Define Brush Preset, and I have lots of rectangle brushes in here already. We'll do this rectangle, and I misspelled rectangle. rectangle 3, let's say. I know I probably have even 4 or 5 in there. Anyway, um, this is how we make a brush. Now, right now I've got all the shape dynamics turned on it. But you can see it's kind of cool to draw with. So if I go back down here, gotta get on that layer. So what I like to do is split up my layers. So I got my foreground, my middle ground, my background, and I'm not even titling them. Okay. Um, we can also cut into this a bit. And I'm just playing around, working for a second, and just see what I can come up with. Also, notice I'm zoomed way out. And that's because I don't want to get too specific on details. If I have details, they're going to be a little bit, not so refined. Maybe something like this. So we'll have another color there. I'm going to take this out completely right now. And then we'll go in, we'll make another one. We'll make it a little taller here. And it's not going to be so refined, but I'm going to show you another feature for doing a rectangle brush, which is awesome. Okay, so let's say we've got something kind of like this going on. And then let's make another layer over here, make another layer put underneath here. You can title your layers if you want, but I'm not doing mine just because, I'm working kind of fast here. We'll type in 25. There we go. And I'm going to go and get a round brush, or what I'd like to talk about is, and I don't know why that just did that. Hit the L key. Oh, it's probably because of something here. We'll just do that. All right, there's that. There we go. Something was happening over there. That's why there was a little signal coming in. But one thing I like to play with in Photoshop if I'm drawing is I like to draw with the lasso tool. Okay? And I'm going to just kind of do some more castle structures back here, along with mountains, just so there's somewhat in the distance. There we go. So it's not the best drawing. I've been doing so many of these. Now I need to kind of take a break from them, but I'm just playing around. And yeah, see, that rectangle brush even comes in handy when you're doing mountains like that. Okay, so let's say that we have a landscape like this happening, and I'm on the wrong layer. We'll go to the right layer here. We'll just fix this a little bit more. And mind you, like I said, this is just a rough sketch, so I'm not trying to get everything perfect. It's just we want it to look halfway decent from from a distance, and so actually I'm going to move this down just a little bit like that, okay? Therefore, I'm going to come down here and move my mountains down a little bit here because I've got that back there. I like kind of having those in two different values. Now, if you want to use more than the values I've selected, you can do it, but it just makes your job a little harder. That's why I think it's best to kind of restrict the amount of values. Okay. Now, the thing is, most of you in my class are animation majors, and you like drawing characters, but most of you don't like doing environments. But environments can be really cool because you got to think of them like the stage for your character. And let me go over here to my brushes. I'm going to get another round brush here. Come on. Talking to my computer. Use a hard round brush. And we'll just zoom in just a little bit more. And I'm going to make another layer so we can do a character. And we'll do the character in the same color as the background. And it's a little rough. Put a knight on a horse. We're going to have to erase out because he's starting to look funny. Maybe it's not a knight on a horse. Maybe it's a bear out there. Who knows? Or a wolf. Now I'm just being rough here. Okay. And let me go, and when we race out this time, I'm going to use my that's better. Okay, so now that and so this gives us some distance. It starts to tell us a story, and I know it's really rough, but the main thing we're looking at is composition. Placement of items. How big are things? Should we make him a little bit bigger so he really stands out? We don't want to make him too big. One thing about compositions, we don't want them to be on the same level. So, that's one thing I started blowing this up, and it's like, that would be very awkward because that causes a tangent when his head is the same height as the castle in the background. So we'll keep him down small, somewhere around there. But that's why I like putting him on his own layer. Okay, so that's one sketch I've done. Now let me come over here. This was something I was working on. I don't know why everything there we go. Some glitch just happened for a second. So I showed you how to make a rectangle brush. I'm going to show you how to make other brushes, but I want to show you what you can do with making a rectangle brush. And that is, we can make buildings and windows, okay? So when I typically do architecture and I do modern buildings, I don't paint every window. I make a rectangle brush and then I space it out. So let's go over here to one of my rectangle brushes. We'll go to brush settings. We'll take off the shape dynamics, okay? And we'll spread this out here. We'll take this off here too. So they're going to be all the same size. Take that off. There we go. All right, now on this layer here, we're going to make this a little larger. But this is typically how I make windows. And hold down the shift key, and what I can do is I can take that and then duplicate that, or draw another row down here. The situation is usually when I'm making windows, especially lots of them like that, I will do something to this effect where I make a separate layer, I duplicate it, okay, and then I'll move it down just like we were doing our frames. And then I'll keep doing this, okay, and keep doing this. Almost there. It's getting close. That's fine. And then maybe one more. That's probably close enough, I hope. All right, so this is a great way to make windows. And we take all these layers here and we collapse them. Now, the other thing we could do is we could take these window and we can make a set of window brushes. You know, we could do define brush preset, and we'll call this, windows. So therefore, if we want to ever use that again, Control D, we could just, boom, we got windows here, okay? We can also paint with this. All right. And I like to make windows like this. Now, if we want to make more complicated windows, we could do that too. And what I typically do for that is make another layer here quickly. And we'll get our marquee tool. Okay. And we'll draw out a rectangle, fill that. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let's just take a regular rectangle brush here. Let's go to my brushes. We got all kinds of rectangles. Make this really tiny here. Actually, we're going to go to the erase key. The eraser. I hit the E key. Okay, so what we can do is and we'll just take our brush settings, make that a little smaller here. And hold down the shift key. Whoops. As we do that. There we go. And I'm just trying to get centered there. And then we can go straight across like that. And we got a window. And then we can make this into a brush, okay? And I'm just going to have to... I'm using my magic wand to select that. But we can define brush preset. And we can do another window. I don't know how many window brushes I've got in here. I'll just call it window 3 because I know I got more than one. Anyway, the thing is that now, so we can make this window brush, space it out, Command D, make it smaller, and we can make windows like that. Which are really cool to do, okay? I'll just make a bunch of those. Like that. We'll duplicate this layer. I don't want to stretch it. And sometimes what I'll do is, just to speed things up, I'll do this. I'll collapse those two layers, duplicate this now. I did not duplicate that. Yes. There we go. Now I've duplicated. That's why I couldn't do anything. All right, pull this down like this. And so now I've got windows like this, and we'll collapse that, Command E. Can make that into a brush, but what I'm really going to do is I'm going to come over here to this rectangle here and turn it into a building. And we can duplicate this too. So we'll have another set over here to use. Usually what I'll do is I'll make duplicates, so I'll have them on layers. Then we can take this one, do Command T, go to distort it, and set it in here. And I'll hold down my Command key so I can distort. And this is, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the line here. these need to be parallel to the lines going in perspective, okay? And you can always bring that up just a little bit, hit return, and voila, that's how we make a building, okay? And it's so much faster than trying to draw it. It's so much faster than drawing every single window. And then we can lock the pixels and paint inside, okay? So anyway, that's one way of working with brushes. So let me turn this back on here. And another way of working with brushes is we can take parts of our drawing and turn them into brushes, okay? So, I've got, for instance, all this right here, which is interesting. All this clutter. And I'm going to lasso. Let me go down to this layer here. I'm going to lasso some of this. I might just think about the shape I want as I'm lassoing it. Something kind of like that. And I'm going to do simply is this. Command J. So that makes a duplicate. Okay, turn this layer off. And we turn the other layers off too. Whoops. Okay. Turn that off. All right, so now, and we'll just turn our frames off too. So this can actually be a brush. And if we want to, we could work on it a little bit. We can even cut into it more. Let's say we want something kind of like that. All right. And now, well, here's the deal. If we make this brush now, let's go define brush preset. Okay. Command D. Now, notice if we paint with black, see it's in gray? And the reason why is because that was filled with gray, okay? And we're going to play with that brush once we get it made here. So let me select that. We'll hit Alt-Delete. And now we'll do another brush here. Let's define brush preset. We can call it something too if we want to. But anyway, let's play around with painting with this. Turn on all of our layers for this. And we don't need this layer on. We can delete that layer. And again, we can play around with, spacing this out. Okay. We can go play around with size. We can play around with angle jitter. So these will actually rotate. Okay. Even roundness. And therefore, when we paint, and I'm going to go, let's go back. Well, let's just paint over here. I'm just going to come down to here. And we're going to paint with that color, with that value, that is. And look, we can, this is kind of cool. You can make your own brushes like this. Okay. And, if you like the settings, like right now I have it set up with these shape dynamics, then what you want to do is you want to go and do new brush preset and include the tool settings, okay? If you want, you can include the color if you want to. I would never do that. Or capture brush size if you like that brush size. I usually never do that either. So this is kind of a great tool for drawing with, okay? So we can draw with the lasso tool. We can draw with different types of brushes. And if we need to make things, like let's go up here now. This will be our foreground color for this layer here. And I'm just going to do a sloping heel. Actually, you know what? Pick this color, do Alt-Delete. Okay. And I'm just playing around here for a second. Let's use that brush here too. So we'll get some rubble in the front, and we'll make it a little larger here. All right, so we've got different kinds of brushes. One brush that I want to point out here is, you notice I got trees in here. Well, what I'm doing is I'm actually have tree brushes set up, and I've given those to my class. If you're listening on YouTube, I don't have any place for you to get them, but basically how I made them is by going on the internet and typing in tree silhouette and finding tree silhouettes, bringing them into Photoshop, selecting them, and defining them as brushes. And so I've defined a bunch of these. So if we want to put in a tree here in the foreground, let's first of all, let's isolate this. And then go back over here and pick my tree. And we're going to take the brush. Yeah, take that off right there. And usually what I'll do is I'll just plop it in like that. Okay. And boom. I don't paint with it. I just plop it in, and I've got a bunch of trees there, and I can keep adding more trees and make a forest. Okay? So if I want to make a forest, we just kind of keep going back in here, finding other trees to plop in. Make different sizes. And this is the absolute quickest way when you're dealing with lots of trees. Now, I like drawing trees. I really do, but sometimes it's better to do this. There we go. So we can have and see how quick that is? It's so quick and easy to make trees like that. And by using that tree brushes. And as I said before, you can go onto Google Images, type in silhouette, trees, download them, bring them into Photoshop. You can draw on top of them if you need to refine them, or just try select them and then make sure they're filled with black, and then define them as a brush. And then save them. And then you got tree brushes, okay? So anyway, that will help you out with doing this assignment. And let me show you some other sketches here. So these were done in Procreate. And I like the Procreate brushes. As you can see, I used some trees. I put some people in some of these. Down here, the last one I was working with, I was using the marker brush. And it kind of gives you this nice gradated color. So it gives you a little bit more detail, or implied detail in the distance here, okay? And then this is what I was working on before for myself. And as I said, it's good to put in people or animals or something, because it makes it more into a story, makes it far more interesting. It might make it more interesting for you. You don't have to shade these for my class. You can shade them if you want to. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking at your compositions, and then you pick the best one, and then you can shade it, and then we'll do different color versions of it. Okay, and so I hope this helps you out with the project. And for those of you who are listening to me on YouTube, thank you. And that's it.